Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Moths to the Flame. We are so excited today to have author, horror journalist, podcaster, pretty much just a spooky bitch all around, Kat Voleur with us today.
Hello.
Yes, I am super excited to hear about you. Kind of dabble in all the things, and I think that's
Yeah.
super, super cool. So, you're a full-time horror journalist.
Yes.
You are on two podcasts. This is what is it? Horror
Uh,
is life. This
this,
horror life.
this horror life. That one
This.
is actually temporarily on hiatus. We're coming back soon.
Okay, great,
But
great. Okay, so that one I think the most was there. There were episodes up until January, right? Is
yes,
that correct? Okay, good. And then tell us about Slasher Radio. Is that another
slasher radio.
podcast?
Yes. And we are not on hiatus. We're ongoing. Uh,
Okay, okay, great, great. And then
so,
you're on Twitter and Instagram and all the
yes.
social media. So, what is the handle
I'm
that
trying.
everyone can find? Yeah, right, don't we have to?
Yeah.
What is the handle that everybody can find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at cat_Voleur, CAT_VOLEUR, because I have a French name that's difficult to spell.
I
And
love it.
then on Instagram, it is just Cat Voleur.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. Awesome. So those are the two that you're primarily at. If people are wanting to reach you or anything, that's where
yes.
yeah. And
Uh,
that,
Twitter is fastest. Like I'm on Twitter the most, but I always worry that it's gonna just like vanish overnight. So I'm trying to get
right.
better about using Instagram.
Yes, I know. It's funny. I find that a lot of the horror writers were on Twitter and TikTok and Facebook. I just recently discovered everybody's hanging out on Facebook. I didn't know, and but I'm like inching over to Instagram, like
Yeah.
trying. So, and those are the places where everyone can find out about your newest book. Is this your
Yes.
debut? I
This is my
believe.
debut. So
Awesome. So tell us about Revenge Arc. Let's hear all
Revenge
the
Arc.
things.
Well, first of all, since there is going to be video, I always feel like I have to show off
You must.
the amazing cover art. I've been trying to
Oh.
promote the cover artist. Grim Poppy Designs did my cover, and it
Oh
is
yes,
just
I'm familiar with their work. Great, great.
such great work.
Yeah,
Constantly
awesome.
blown away. So,
Yes, yes. Very
um,
cool.
but it is a found file horror novella, technically.
Okay.
But it's all done true to source formatting. There is no narrative in here outside of what you can tell from like Reddit threads and Discord chats, tweets. Uh,
Awesome. So very
so
dark. It's like dark web inspired, right?
yes, it is
Okay.
inspired by the dark web.
Yeah. So have you been I mean, this is, an explicitly labeled podcast. So I'm beyond fascinated by dark web. I'm too much of a puss though. I've never actually been on the dark web. I just like to read the Reddit threads about it and like, oh my God, these red rooms and all this shit. And like, but no, I'm far too much of a puss to do that. So have you ever been on the dark web? Have you like
I have.
seen?
And that's
Oh,
actually, it's one of the things that kind of comes up in the book is that I think a lot of, and my character and I have different belief systems for a lot of things. One thing we agree
right.
on, one part of her that comes directly from me, is I think it's a lot scarier to read about the dark web than it is to be on the dark web.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
There are some really I think the dark web as a concept is such a fascinating breeding ground for horror stories.
Yeah.
But I've never found anything like super exciting on there.
Boo!
Like
You're not
it's
going to the right corners, right?
no, it's so hard to navigate. And it's like I had when I was checking it out for myself, it was one of those things where I never found anything on the dark web. I got into like some surface web forums and
Mhm.
asked for help, and I had some people point me in the right direction. So I visited some of like the really famous like scam sites
Right. Right.
essentially. Like the doll maker site I've been on and stuff, and
Okay.
it's like
Okay.
there is that kind of like nervous energy that comes from really being on the dark web,
Yeah.
but pretty much all the things I've seen I could also have seen and was introduced to on the surface web. So it's
On
like
Reddit and on where we've been hanging out for a long time,
yeah.
right? Right. We were all born out of creepy pasta and
Mhm.
then we just, went to Tumblr and Yeah. And
Yeah.
now I feel like a lot of it too shows up randomly on Twitter and TikTok too. Like just
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, oh my God, how did that slip through? But then I had, XYZ lame shit deleted. And, so anyway, I
Yeah.
think that's fascinating. And I really would like to know more about. Did you do research before you went on the dark web? Like I know you have to
I
use
did.
different, and we're not going to tell people how to
No.
get on the
No
dark web. We're not
instructions.
we're not encouraging listeners.
No.
We're not telling you to do so because there are lots of things to be. I mean, people can get in your information
Yeah.
and all there. It's very, very dangerous. And I think I've heard some horror stories about people finding out others' addresses and
Yeah.
sending SWAT teams to their house or mailing stuff to them or that sort of thing. So have you ever seen any of those kind of warnings? What kind of research did you do in preparation for this book and for going on the dark web?
Well, the preparation for the book, I actually went on the dark web first. I was on the
Of
deep web.
course, you're a
Uh,
moth to the flame.
yeah, I needed to know what was going on there. I just was
Yeah.
curious. So that was something that, but a lot of the research did like years and years later inspire the book. I'm honestly not sure I could even like get onto the dark web safely today because it's one of those like the updates and the firewalls and stuff. It's
Right.
constantly updating, and it's been so long now since I've been that it's like I don't know if I'd be comfortable trying that
Oh
again.
yeah, no. I'm an old
Um,
granny at this point. They're smarter than me now.
yeah, like someone would definitely get my information if I did this
Definitely.
again.
Definitely.
But
Yeah.
at the time I had just bought a new laptop, and I was like, what am I gonna do with this old laptop? And then immediately I was like, probably get on the dark web.
Game time. That's the perfect recipe for let's fuck some shit up.
Yeah.
Yes. I love
um,
that.
and I had my partner at the time was actually like a huge tech nerd, so I did like step by step. I got all the information from Reddit on how to put in like all of the antiviral things that I needed and a VPN, and just
Yeah.
like I made sure that I was covered on Reddit, and then I had my partner like look over everything for me.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Double
if
check.
this sound like
Yeah.
I'm about to do something dumb, and he was like really paranoid about it because we were living together at the time, and he's like, I don't know if this is a good idea, and it's like, it's fine.
It's an old laptop. We're good. Like it is what
Yeah.
it is. Yes. Well, it's so funny. My and I know they're listening to this. My mother-in-law, she sometimes will show me these videos. She hasn't shown me one in a long time, but she whips out a video and it was like cartel something and I was like, whoa, or have you been on the dark web? Like where did you get this? Like this is bad. And it was just, I was like, if she's finding this on the surface level of the web, I can only imagine if
Yeah.
if there is anything actually there, wherever it is. So okay, so tell us about, obviously your experiences inspired you to write the book,
Yeah.
but there is that disconnect between, we can influence our characters are
Of
influenced
course.
by us, but there are obviously separate values, separate experiences
Yeah.
there. So what kind of inspired you for the path of your character in their experience in your book?
So there were I do feel very closely connected to my main character, Riley Langdon. She is, I think, um, she has a lot of my like flaws that I had when I started writing.
Hmm.
She's very stubborn and very bullheaded, and she just, I think the thing about Riley is that like most people grow up, like a lot of
Hmm.
people like learn to overcome communication issues, and we kind of evolve and stuff, and Riley is kind of that, like, I was afraid I was going to turn out like this at one point in
An
my life.
alternate universe, yeah.
Yeah, in an alternate reality, we're a lot
Yeah.
closer than I like to admit.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
she doesn't learn. She thinks she's right, about everything, and it
Hmm.
becomes a problem.
I
um,
could see that being on the dark web and dealing with
yeah.
not so nefarious people. Okay. Okay. Very
And
cool.
she like, I think her heart is in the right place, but there are just like certain things that she never gets past. She has a temper. She's got a lot of anger issues. She's chronically online, and it
Like most of
shows.
us these days, yeah.
Yeah,
But probably in a very unhealthy way. So,
but
okay.
for a longer period of time, like.
Okay. Yeah. So what was your writing process like for this book? And did it differ from, I know you do a lot of short stories. Did it differ from your short story writing process, or did you kind of go through the same thing? What was that like?
Well, for this project in particular, I struggled a long time before I decided to make it found file, because that I don't want to say it was something I never worked in, but it was something I never worked in seriously.
Hmm.
Like, the first novel I ever did, I was like 13, like 12 or
Yes.
13. I was in
Yes.
middle
I love the
school.
quote. I already
Um,
knew. I was like, this is some angsty teenage shit, is what this
it,
is.
it was
Yes.
an angsty teenage zombie novel.
Yes. One day
But
we should all like publish an anthology of our shitty teenage writing. Like, wouldn't that be a total riot? That'd be
that
so
would be
funny.
so funny.
Yeah.
That was technically found file, but it was one of those things. I wrote it for me, being an angsty teenager, and I was having fun, and then I didn't think about the format for a long time after that. And then I had been wanting to do this pretty much since I had been on the dark web. There was a very in like 2015, around there was like this period in my life where I got really obsessed with deep web creepypastas. I went on to
Yes.
the deep web, and I was like,
Okay.
that was disappointing.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Hold on.
Oh
For
yeah.
the uninitiated. What is the difference between deep web and dark web?
Oh, yes. So I've been using them kind of interchangeably here, but it's the technical difference. The dark web is all of the like horror corner of the deep web. The deep web technically refers to any of the 90% of internet that you can't access through a normal browser or the
Right.
surface web, which is what we use with like Chrome and Edge and
Google when we
Safari. Yeah.
right. Isn't that is so mind
But that's
blowing, and I
just
wonder.
10%.
Yeah, if listeners,
So,
do you realize that you're only accessing 10% when you're overwhelmed with hundreds and thousands of search
yeah,
results, and that's only the tiniest little speck of the surface?
tip of the iceberg.
That's amazing. Okay, so
Yeah.
then we go into deep web,
So
which
the
is
deep web is everything else, and then the
okay.
dark web is like a corner of that that's like horror specific.
Yeah, like the real
Um,
fucked up shit, the gore
yeah.
and the yeah, yeah. So, which thinking about what all I have seen on
Yeah.
Reddit and like make my coffin and all that, like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no, I can only imagine what it's on there. So, okay, very very interesting. So,
So I I had the idea like right after, because I had some time on the deep web that was not very fulfilling. It was not the creepypasta horror experience I had been promised.
yeah.
Um, I think the coolest thing I ever found on my coolest thing, the most legally incriminating thing I ever found on the deep web.
I
Like
get it. I'm with you. Yeah.
there's like crime scene photos on there. Nothing you probably couldn't find on the surface web. Like,
Okay.
I've seen a lot
Okay.
of true crime stuff on
Same.
the surface web that's like
Same.
the same stuff. So it's
Okay.
like,
Do you remember which crimes they were, or just
um,
like,
they had like so the one that always sticks out to me is there's a very famous crime scene photo that I'm sure anyone in the true crime community has seen of Elizabeth Short. And what I had not ever seen was the
yes.
autopsy photos that accompanied that. Um,
Oh,
I found those for the first time on the deep web. So that was
okay.
I'm sure, again, I'm sure if you looked on the surface web, you could probably
I know.
find
Now
those,
my
like, one of
curious
the
ass is gonna go
most
find it. Yeah.
famous cases in the world. But
Yeah, yeah. I weirdly am drawn to like crime scene cases and like the photos of it too. And I don't know what that
yeah.
is. Like I don't know if there is I don't know what it is. I'm just fascinated by it, and like I feel for the victims, but
Mhm.
it's almost like it's like you're separated from it. And I guess
Yeah.
I've said this on the pod before, but I'm very thankful. I'm very glad that I don't have any of that personal trauma in my life of like being in a crime scene. So
Yeah.
I think I can detach myself from it a little bit more so that it's not like realistic. But yeah, no, when you say cool stuff, I'm like, yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I have a whole clothing line that has like blood splatter on it and shit. Like I get you. Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that sounds really interesting. And that if I was ever going to go any further out into the web, that
Yeah.
I would be looking for that shit. I would be like trying to find autopsy reports and that sort of thing. So, when
Um
yes,
Oh, but like when that was it, and it was like this is probably the best I'm going to find on my own on the deep web. I decided that I wanted to write a book. Or I didn't know if it was going to be a book. I decided I wanted to do storytelling about the deep web because it was like my favorite genre of creepypasta at the time.
yeah,
And the real experience didn't like give me anything more. And then I fought with it for like years and years because I didn't know how I had the story in mind. It was like, here are the things that happen in my head. And usually at that point I sit down and I write it. And there was just something about this one where it like wasn't coming out right.
mm-hmm.
I kind of wanted it to be more interactive because it was like it was about internet culture, and there was the idea of like, should I make it a comic or a podcast or like a no sleep series maybe,
Right,
because I wanted it to have that internet feel. And then I had the idea to do it as found file early last year. And it was like, that's the missing piece. That's what I've been missing. I want to sit down and I want to write this. And then actually I read Eric LaRocca's Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke.
yes, shout out to
And
Eric.
that scared the shit out of me. I was
Yeah,
like, oh no, that's like
yeah.
the perfect found file thing has already been done. I don't know if I want to do it.
No, it's a comparison, but it also shows
like,
that people are into it. We like
yeah.
it. Yeah.
It spooked me off the project for a little while, and then I had one of my friends on Twitter did like a 24-hour novel writing challenge, and I was like, I have an idea that's like ready to go. I'll do
Yeah.
it. Like, why not?
Okay,
And,
wait a minute. Pause. Talk to me about the 24-hour writing challenge because I'm one of these procrastinators. Like, it takes me 3 months to write a book, but I feel like that's pretty good. But tell me the 24-hour. What do you do?
So my friend came up with this, and I guess they had done it last year for themselves, and like not last year, they had done it in 2020 for themselves, and then last year they were like, I'm gonna host this as an event where we're just all, and it's not 24 consecutive hours, it's 2 blocks of
Okay.
12 hours over
That's
a
still
weekend.
really
So it's
impressive.
like, so we all took one weekend to just like 12 one day, 12 the next day, get 50,000 words in of whatever we were working on. And
Damn.
yeah, so Revenge Arc used to be like 18,000 words longer than it is now,
Oh
but
my god.
a lot of it was, when you write that much in that like short amount of time, a lot of it's nonsense. Like
Right.
a lot of it needed
Stream of consciousness. Like,
yeah.
but get it on the page. That's great.
So
Okay, very cool. I love
so
that
the writing
concept.
process, like once I was ready, it's so weird because I don't think I've ever sat on a single idea this long.
Mhm.
But then once I sat down to write it, it's like, it's done.
Flowed out. Yeah, it had
Yeah.
to come out. Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. So do you have any themes, messages, kind of like takeaway from this book other than like don't fuck around on the dark
Don't
web?
fuck around on the dark web.
Yeah.
There's a lot of commentary in there. The interesting thing about this particular format is that you're essentially seeing the primary sources of a story and not the story itself. So you can draw a lot of your own conclusions. I think there are a lot of thematic commentary on, like, it gets into the moral implications of the true crime community. It gets into the moral implications of the horror community.
Mm-hmm.
There are some feminist messages in there, but yeah, a lot of it is open to interpretation, I think, which is something that I really enjoy about Found File as a
I like
genre.
that because it's your interpretation, and it's also just how does it speak to you, how does it speak to other people, because it's going to mean different things to different people. I love that.
Yeah.
So in that kind of thought-provoking headspace, what do you think it is about the horror genre, about the true crime genre that draws you in? Why do you think people are fascinated by it?
That's a question I ask myself a lot. um, I think for me, there's something. I'm a very all or nothing kind of person. I like very extreme things, and I'm this way about like other things too. And I think it's just that horror is like it's the most extreme genre.
Oh
It's
yeah.
you can do the wildest stuff with it. It's like the most intimate genre.
Hmm.
And it's so personal, you know.
I
I
agree.
I don't feel this way about any other genre, but I am kind of that way about other things. Like a really good example, I only eat spicy food, even though it hurts me. I don't know why I do that.
So what you're saying is you like the
I
hurt,
like it, yeah.
right?
I'm a
Yes.
masochist.
That's
I
right.
like the
Yeah,
horror
it's
genre.
okay. It's okay. You're not alone, but I do not like spicy food. That is interesting. Well, and there's actually science behind it where they talk about how people can manage their emotions and their own fears through horror because it's a controlled environment. And it's like
Yeah,
you're safe when you're watching the horror movie because the killer's not out there to actually come and get you.
yeah.
Or like when we're writing, we can exercise our own demons. I'm just repeating what my psychiatrist says to me. So so that's what I mean. I think that's kind of that take of whatever draws us to it. It's just an interesting thing. Why do people they study birds and butterflies, and we just like true crime and
We
spooky
just
things. So
like the
yeah,
scary stuff.
yeah, right. So how do you feel like the scary stuff has evolved over time? Because it seems like you are really steeped in multiple types of horror media,
Yeah,
movies, books, podcasts, creepypasta, the internet culture, all of that
yeah,
fandom stuff. So how do you feel like, I know, in the last at least decade, it's changed quite a bit in internet culture specifically,
yeah.
but what have you kind of seen across all of the medias that you dabble in?
I've seen so the thing that really impressed me, and it was the early era of creepypastas where it was just there was that interactive element. It's also why I like horror video games because there's that connection where it's especially like first person horror games are fantastic because it's like
Mhm.
you're this person and you're in danger and there's that there's no dividing in between you and the character at that point. Like you
Right.
are in danger, and it's so
Yeah.
immersive. Like I love that so much.
Do you do the
Um,
VR horror video games? Have you tried
Only
that?
once
So we
because I
have
don't
a
have a
VR
VR
set.
set,
Yeah,
but
I have one, and like I said, I'm a puss, so I have to I work my way into it, and I really like it. I think it would be funny to have people over and like live stream it, and
that would
how
be
would we
so
all
fun.
react because it's so immersive.
Yeah,
That's some scary shit. That's that non-protected. You're not like
you don't
you
feel
feel
safe.
no, you feel like you're in that shit at that point. So yeah. So what do you think as far as how it's changed though? Like what it
Yeah.
used to be and then what it is now.
So I remember, like when I was getting in, I'm gonna age myself a little bit here, but when I was getting into when I was getting into creepypastas, a big thing going around at the time was the like chain letter style creepypasta where it was like now you're involved
Yes.
in this.
Yes. I
You
forgot
know,
about that. Yes, you
either
could age
like
me too.
you've got to pass it along or like there was the one that really got me was Smile Dog, where it was like, now it's a
Mhm.
larger pool of people for this dog to go after. Good
Yeah.
luck. And I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Oh my
Like,
god.
why am I in the pool suddenly? I don't
Like,
like that.
thanks whoever sent it to me for the trauma in my life. I appreciate that. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Um, so that was where I started seeing it because like as an audience I felt like I was included, but then No Sleep came along and that was something that because you're suddenly able to comment and
Mhm.
in No Sleep in the forum it's treated as like y- we all take this as fact, we don't ask for proof, we just all
Yeah.
immerse ourselves in the horror of whatever is going on. And so there were like these fictional characters that you were suddenly able to like interact with, and you're able to kind of like shape how that story goes based off of your comments. And that was something that had a big impact on me.
Yeah, that was super cool. It was almost like a choose your own story, but like together. Everybody was
Yeah.
kind of making it happen together, which I think is another really cool format. I like reading stories like that. One day I'll have the balls
One
to
day.
write one, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So, very cool. So, as far as all of the different forms of media, do you have a favorite?
I go through cycles where I like one more than the other, I think. Currently I'm on books. I've been reading a lot of like really nasty independently published horror books recently.
Extreme horror? Okay.
Extreme
Like
horror.
Matt Shaw, Duncan, all, yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Awesome,
Um
awesome.
my cover designer actually, Grim Poppy, just her debut came out this last month, I think. Maybe the month before that. It's been recently. And it is one of the most like upsetting, depraved things I've ever read in my entire life. And it was
Oh
like,
my
oh
God,
my
that's amazing. What's it
god.
called? Tell us,
Um,
tell us.
it's called The Breaking of Mona Hill, and it is
Oh,
so
yes.
upsetting.
Okay, good.
And I
See, what is wrong? I'm like, yes!
I know. So there's the story, because we had worked together. She did my cover.
Yeah,
I've bought a couple other like pre-made covers from her for stuff that I'm working on now. And so
cool.
we're kind of like at the time in like January, we were kind of friendly,
Yeah.
and she's like, I'm looking for ARC readers, and I was like, I do a lot of ARC reading. I'll take a copy. And she was like, before I send this to you, do you have any trigger warnings? And I was like, no. And she's like, are you sure? And I was like, nobody's ever
Hit me
asked
with
me
it.
if I was sure. Like, what does that mean? And then when she sent the email, it was like, there was a note at the top of it that was like, if you need to tap out, I understand. And I was like, what is in
Oh my
this
God,
book?
game on. Game on.
I don't think I've ever
Yes.
been so excited for an ARC like
Oh,
ever in
that's
my life. I was
awesome.
but it was, and then like I read the book and it's like, oh yeah, this would upset a lot of people.
Now I'm curious. It's that Moss to the Flame shit. I'm gonna have to read it.
You have to know.
I remember seeing it out on the interwebs and things. I haven't read it yet though. So that sounds awesome. I need to
It's
check
so
it out.
good.
I'm one of those that I just have a standing trigger warning. Like any of my book content that comes like just proceed with caution.
Yeah.
Like pretty much proceed with caution. So okay, so thinking about, we've talked about kind of the different forms of media, what your favorite is. So what, as far as favorite subgenre of horror, would you consider? Like, what's your favorite? What are you drawn to?
So as like a broad umbrella term, I'm going to say psychological horror.
Okay.
Um, I have really, and this probably comes through a lot in the book. I've really been into revenge horror recently. I don't know if it's because I had to do a lot of research for this, where I was watching a lot of these things.
Are you on a mission? Do you have a revenge quest of your own? Like,
I've got a revenge quest. I think, and we were talking about how like there's the exorcising demons and stuff that just comes through with horror. I think
yeah.
revenge horror is very cathartic.
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah.
It's so satisfying.
Definitely. It's got the happy ending. No, yeah, a lot of people like that for sure. So that's like, let me think. What's that revenge horror that oh God, I don't want to describe it because I'll be like beyond that. Oh, I Spit on Your Grave. Is that the
I Spit on Your Grave?
Yeah,
is...
big time revenge horror for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that too, it kind of comes into my next question, how horror is used a lot of times to explore deeper themes and issues in society.
That is something that really, because I think a lot of like critics have just started to notice this. There's a term that really irritates me, the elevated horror, where it's just like critics came in and they're like, oh, this has a message, it must be better than normal
this
horror.
Is nuanced.
Like, horror has always had a message.
Welcome to the genre. Yeah, no, I know that, and I loved when that was the trend. Everybody's like, oh, when you're querying, let them know that it's literary, it's elevated. I'm like, what are you saying about the rest of horror, bitch? Like,
yeah.
because extreme horror touches me emotionally in ways that a lot of things don't. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's just I find I'm with you on that. Fuck the elevated horror phrase.
Thing,
no, it is. Yeah, we're anti-elevated horror as a term on this
term.
podcast. Yes,
and that's
exactly.
Because I always like, because they say that about all kinds of movies, that I like the movies fine, but I think it's dumb to separate them from other movies that also had messages.
Right, right. Well,
Because
and I think too, then you get into the thought of, well, what makes it elevated? Is it because people are using more flowery prose, or is it the topic that they're covering? Like my style of writing is very flowery and like a 95-year-old, got a Victorian woman, like that's the shit. But I like that shit, you know.
yeah,
That's not for everybody. So some people might call that elevated horror. Some people might call that like granny ass horror. I don't know, you know. So
yeah.
I think you really get into when you start giving it a label like that, you're just further dividing our wonderful little culture that has the nicest and most awesome and such intelligent people in it. What a great community we have. So,
Out
how
of
do you
all of the internet communities I've ever been in, horror people are the sweetest people. Like,
beyond? Yeah,
it's insane.
beyond. And I love it because it's so funny when I have other writer groups and people that are not horror writers, and I'm their resident bat, and they're like, but you're so friendly, but you're so nice. I'm like, you should meet the entire crew. Like everybody is friendly and nice and
They're all
accepting, and it's
so
not
friendly and
this
nice.
like pretentious nose in the air bullshit. We're like, guess what? We're fucked up people. So I think that makes for a good community. So what do
Yeah.
you think makes for a good horror story?
I really like being surprised. I like being surprised to the point that I end up watching a lot of movies that I don't like because I refuse to read descriptions or watch trailers.
No
Like, I
way.
just show up and I'm
Oh
like,
my
what do you have for
god.
me?
No way. I bet that's such an exciting way to live. I have
It's
to I
it's so
like know the
exciting.
whole movie before I walk in. But then it makes me more scared because I'm like, when are they going to rip their head off? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
no. I need to try that. Next time I'm going to say, all right, I'm inspired by Cat. I'm going to go. I'm going in blind.
It's a high risk, high reward situation because
Very true.
I watch a lot of movies that are just terrible, and then you read the description and you're like, oh, I should have known.
Okay, wait. Okay,
um,
what's one of the terrible ones that you've seen though? That'll give us the warning.
okay, so I think I'm trying to think of like a more recent one. Not to cause any controversy, I did not know what I was getting into with Skinamarink. I took
Okay.
my mother. She was mad at
No.
me. She didn't talk to me for like a week.
That's amazing. That
I was like, Mom,
is amazing.
we're gonna go watch Skinamarink in
Oh
theater,
my
and she's like,
god.
"What is it?" And I was like, I don't know the answer to that. Like,
Oh
let's
my
go.
god. That's amazing. My mom would die. She would die. She's like, it brings the devil into the home. Not her jam at all. That's hilarious. I love
Yeah.
that you and your mom were going to a horror movie anyway. Like that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
I will. Sometimes she'll ask me how much because being in the horror community, like doing a horror podcast where I have to cover news, sometimes I know what stuff is going in. And she's taken to, since Skinamarink, she's taken to asking me, like, how much do you know about this movie? What are we going into?
Yes, getting a little preview. That's good.
Yeah.
I used
Because,
to ask, yeah, my husband would have to give me the preview on Stephen King books because I can't handle like children. I didn't, and he like apparently has, I don't know, he's obsessed with that. And so I'm like, how many kids get hurt in this book? Because I just need to be prepared. So yeah.
yeah.
So speaking of your podcasts, how were those born? Where did those come from? Tell us about Slasher Radio and then
Uh,
Horror is Life. How did those begin?
this is actually pretty much how I got onto this podcast today. I saw I saw someone Slasher Radio a few years ago was like, we think we would like to bring in a third host. We're looking for someone a little bit different than the two hosts we have. We'd like to get an outside perspective in there. And I don't know what made me this confident all of a sudden, because I had no podcasting experience at the
Fuck
time.
yeah.
But I was just like, oh, I know about horror movies, I'll do it. And they're like,
Done.
all right. Do you want to come on and do like a test episode with us? And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. And so we recorded the episode, and then I just never left.
That's
I
amazing.
wasn't hired. I just like started showing up every week.
You're like, I'm a part of you. That is some boss energy that I fucking love. I love that. That's amazing. You're like, I am this now. This is great. Awesome.
Uh,
Awesome.
So, and Rob, who does Slasher Radio, had
Mhm.
another show that he did with, like, one of the friends of Slasher Radio, This Horror Life. And even though we're on hiatus now, I very much, because I was friends outside of Slasher Radio with the other co-host. So when I
Mhm.
found out that they were doing something together, I was like, I'll come guest sometime, maybe, if you want.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, yeah, sure. And then it was a revenge horror movie. They were talking about,
True
Last House on
theme.
the Left. They were doing like
Oh,
an original
yes.
versus remake episode, and neither one of them like Last House on the Left. And I was like, you have to come let me defend this movie.
No, wait a minute.
Um,
What? What? I'm
I know,
actually like what? Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I was like,
I
this movie
love
needs
that
a
one.
defender. So I just invited myself on. I was like, we've been talking about having me on as a guest for a long time. You need someone that likes this movie to come talk sense into the two of you dopes. Like,
Right, right. I feel like I need
I'll
to
be
know their
there.
reasoning. Why didn't they like it? Because I mean, it's shocking
So
for sure, but it talk about a great revenge arc. Like she fucked some people
it's
up. Like,
so good.
yeah.
Um, so Rob doesn't like revenge horror movies, so I wasn't entirely surprised that he
Okay.
didn't like it. And Ghost's issue, she had seen the remake first before she saw the original, and in comparison, the original is much slower. It's
Right,
better, but it is slower also.
right.
So she, had kind of a weird angle on that one. She came around on the original a little bit. Rob gets stubborn. So
So for
it's just like,
listeners, if you have not experienced Last House on the Left, this is your
yeah,
sign to watch the original
go watch it.
first
Go
and
watch
then
the
watch the
original.
remake. Yes, and then you can appreciate it. It's kind of like that, the book is better than the movie thing.
Yeah.
Like when, we're all like skewed all the time. So, no, I love that. So, when you all are choosing guests for your podcast, do you typically have just horror people, or are there like horror adjacent type things like haunts and spooks and whatever? What kind of guests do you guys usually have on there?
Usually, so this horror life, we don't dabble much in guests, just because we have. One of the reasons we're on hiatus right now, we just have a really tough time scheduling because all three of us have such different schedules.
Yes.
So until that got sorted out, we kind of had to put a pin in it. For
Right.
Slasher Radio, though, we try to reach out. We actually had one of our more recent guests. We had William Delphin on, who is a creepypasta writer. He did
Yeah.
the Lily Madwhip thing. So we have mostly it's movie people. We've had some incredible like actors and directors and stuff on the podcast, but we're branching out. We just had Ben on from Fright Rags. So that was a lot of
Oh,
fun.
that's cool. So see,
We're
listen,
doing like
all
horror
everyone, after
merch
you
and
listen to this podcast, you have to go buy her book,
mhm.
Revenge Arc, and then you have to go listen to the podcast, okay? Because in all the areas, I love that. So how do you balance your professional journalistic side of life with your authorly side of life, with your podcast side of life, and apparently video gaming and all
And
these
video
things?
games.
What do you do? Is that a lame phrase? Can you tell that I don't game?
I also don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
So it's hard. Things kind of come and go. I guess they rotate is a better phrase because they don't really leave. But I will kind of focus on one thing
Hmm.
more and let everything else. Another thing that I'm in, I have like a monthly appointment. I'm on a show called Video Game Adaptations where I talk about horror games.
That's
Uh,
cool.
but we kind of work around other shows. So it's like,
Right.
and that's one thing because it's like I get into I get into games. I replay a bunch of like classic horror games when I'm doing that show, but then when it goes on break, I go back to reading stuff, and then I can schedule like
Yes.
a bunch of reviews for
Yes.
books. And having the ARCs helps because I
Hmm.
can like schedule for their release, but I get to do all the reading in like one block.
Yes.
Um,
That's awesome. So do you sleep, or you just hanging out? You
I
a vampire, or
I'm just a vampire. I
I
do
feel
have
that. Yeah.
insomnia, so
Okay, I feel that.
I
Yeah.
don't sleep as much as I should.
Yeah, yeah, I feel
Probably.
you. All my writer friends were going, Rachel, you. Whoops, I'm gonna have to cut that part out. Marie,
Marie.
I've doxed myself, right? I'll have to take that out. So, anyway, I'm back on track. How did you get into horror journalism to begin with? Where did that come from? Like, what kind of sparked your interest?
So I had my first writing job. It's interesting to talk about my freelancing career. My day job is also writing.
Oh, good for you.
So
That's great.
I've been a freelancer, and I think it's why I have trouble focusing on one thing, because as a freelancer, you're constantly having to juggle like 6 or 7 things that you actually do.
Right.
And I don't know how to leave that mindset behind, where it's like I actually took this year off to just focus on fiction writing, and I've still like in that time I've started a new podcast, and I've like started a website, and I'm
Yep.
like I can't focus on one thing.
Yep. Gotta have your
Um
hands in all the dishes. I feel that.
because I was freelancing for 10 years, like that's how it works.
Yeah.
But I was my first freelance job I actually got during my senior year of high school, and it was ghostwriting. But none of it was ever like stuff that I wanted to be writing. It was like, we'll send you an outline. We need you to flush this out to this many words, and you can make really good money doing that if you write
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
but it was not super. So it was like, well, I'll take this on, and then I'll do like a side project, which is when I started horror journalism, because that was what I didn't have time to be like writing for myself when you're putting out that much fiction,
Right.
but I was still very interested in like horror movies and stuff. So like covering news was something that I felt like I could do. I applied to a lot of stuff like that, and I got a lot of rejections, like, happens when you're starting
Oh.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think the first like horror adjacent thing, I was working for Gothic.net actually, and I was doing like in real time Game of Thrones recaps
Oh
was
my
like the
God.
first
That's
thing.
amazing.
But then like once Game of Thrones ended, they let me, and that was the best job I ever had, because they paid me. I only got to work like 2 hours a week, but they paid me by the hour. My whole job was just to know things about Game of Thrones, and they
Oh.
paid for my HBO subscription. So I
Oh,
was like, this is
fuck.
the
Yes.
coolest thing I've
Okay,
ever
but wait
done.
a minute though. So if you were writing it in real time as we were all watching it, because my
Yeah.
ass was watching every single episode of
Oh
Game of
yeah.
Thrones for sure. Because I'm a big fantasy fan too. I was
Yeah.
born out of fantasy, so and then went to dark fantasy, and then I was like, ooh, horror. So, but did it diminish your watching? Like, were you, because you were typing and writing at the same time? Like, were you able to be as invested in the shock factor, like, or do you
Um,
think it changed your experience at all?
I think so. I think it actually helped my experience. I think if I had been doing it in the early seasons, it might have diminished it some, because there's like that multitasking. But I
Right.
came in at season 5, so I already like I knew what was
Knew
going
it.
on. I was like,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, I have to say I'm gonna embarrass myself. Fantasy readers, turn off right now. Don't
oh
turn the
no.
volume down for a little while. But the only book that I have DNF'd is Game of Thrones, and
Oh
it was
wow.
only because, and I love Game of Thrones, I love it. But I was in school at the time, and so
Mhm.
trying to do my thesis and all of that, and it was just too much. It was too dense. I couldn't do it. So that's the one. Game of Thrones was the book that I have not
Uh,
finished, and I'll get back to it one day.
I have while we're doing embarrassing fantasy confessions, I think the only fantasy book that I have DNF'd that I've just like never gotten back around to. I was about 16, and I picked up The Mists of Avalon, and I was so mad. I was so insulted. I was like, there is
Right?
incest and religious drama, and I don't know why my mother would recommend this to me. Like I am horrified. And then it was so funny because like 2 years after that I started A Song of Ice and Fire. And I
Uh-huh.
was like,
Uh-huh. Hello,
oh,
incest. Here's all the things. Yeah, I guess
here
this is a
we go.
That's
Um,
amazing.
it
Well,
turns out I'm willing to overlook a lot of things if they're a
yeah.
dragon.
Yeah, it's okay. And it's like sometimes you're rooting for them and you're like, damn it, this is not okay.
Yeah.
Why am I having some flowers in the attic shit happening right now? Why am I okay with this? Yeah, oh my gosh,
But
that's funny.
I do think Mists of Avalon, it's one that I would like to get back around to, because as an adult, I don't think any of that stuff would bother me the way that it did when I was a teenager. Like, that was
Right.
just, I think I got to it a little bit too early.
Yeah. Well, now you're dead inside, and nothing.
No.
We've been overexposed to too many things. So,
Yeah.
so outside of the horror genre, since we're talking
Yeah.
about fantasy, what are some of your favorite books and movies in other genres?
Uh, yeah. So, A Song of Ice and Fire was a big one. I've actually these last couple months, I was on bed rest for a little while. I
Oh my
had
goodness.
COVID. I
Oh.
so I was reading a lot of I was looking for lighter stuff, and I was trying to
Hmm.
find a fantasy series that got me the way that A Song of Ice and Fire did, because it was so immersive and,
Yeah.
deep lore, and I was looking for something like that. I haven't really found a good replacement for it. I'm still kind of on that book hangover, but I grew up reading a lot of fantasy. I read a lot of Tolkien growing
Oh
up.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think in books, though, in book terms, all of my favorite non-horror books are classics. Um, this
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
this always surprises people. My all-time favorite book is To Kill a Mockingbird, actually.
Okay, okay,
And
I'm with you. My all-time favorite, again, I told you I'm an old granny. My all-time favorite book is Little Women.
it's so good.
I love it. Like
I
it's
lo-
just I read it once a year. I can't help it. So I'm with you. Listen, we'll just
yeah,
have our lame ass book. But they're not lame. They're
so good.
classic. They're
They
so
are.
good.
They're
They're so
classics
good.
for a reason.
Exactly.
And
There's a
I'm always
reason that they
trying to.
blasted.
Usually, every now and then, I will say, classics is another one of those high risk, high reward, because every now and then I
Mm.
come across one that I didn't understand, and it's like, what?
Yeah, yeah,
Why?
yeah. And then there's somewhere like the required reading for school or something, and you're like, did we really need to read this one
This
though? I'm not
one?
so sure. Yeah, what's this?
Yeah.
I don't know. I had some weird English lit teachers that had us read some. It was strange. So anyway, and I
And
like
then
strange now, but at the time I was like, what?
people are always like, well, what were you doing reading it in the first place? And it's like, I don't know, it's a classic. I
It's
like so many classics. I just
yeah.
thought,
It's a rite of passage. You're
yeah.
supposed to, like, because then that's, that what is it, that 50 books you need to read before you die thing. Like, one of these days I'll make it through that list, but my TBR is taller than my house, so like,
I
we don't.
remember I had one of those posters, and I was trying to get all the way through the book list on there. And then everyone bullied me for everyone I knew got so mad at me because I was reading Atlas Shrugged, and I was like, I don't get Atlas Shrugged. And they're like, why are you reading it? And it's like, it's the last of the 50 books I need to.
Right, fuck them. You need it.
I
You.
read
That's a
49
goal.
books.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That makes me want to revise that. I feel like I need to. You just read Atlas Shrugged, and that's
I
fine. That's
did.
okay. Fuck them with their not understanding it. I think that's great. So if someone were to make a movie about your life,
Oh.
what genre would it be?
Um. Oh, geez. It would be one of those weird indie movies that nobody.
Yes.
That doesn't really. It would be very meandering,
Okay, okay, cool. Would it be more humorous or would it be more like just deep messages and shit or angsty?
It would probably be one of those movies that's a little bit funnier than it should be, because it's
Yes.
it would cover serious themes, but then there would be that levity in there where you're like, am I supposed to be laughing?
I love that. No, I love that where
Yeah.
you're like, what the fuck? Oh, is this okay
What am
to
I
laugh?
watching?
Am I What's happening here? Okay, that's awesome. So, what is before we get into our rapid fire questions, which
Yeah.
are one word answer, can't think about it,
Uh-oh.
just I know, straight off the cuff. Got to talk about some psychological horror right there. What's next for you? I mean, you have your book release coming out August the 1st, which is super
Mhm.
exciting. It's on pre-order now.
Yes.
Is that on Amazon, Barnes and Noble? Where all can you find that? I think it's coming out through Archive of the Odd. Is that
Yes.
correct?
It is coming
Okay.
out through Archive of the Odd. You can find the pre-order link at archiveoftheodd.com. You can find it at my website, catvoleur.com. You can. We actually just got. It's a tiny URL /RA pre-order. So there's that.
Okay.
Uh, because I this is why I would have a meandering indie movie. I've chosen the path of most resistance with my book release. We're not on Amazon yet.
That is okay. That is okay because Amazon is raising their fucking prices,
Amazon's raising their prices,
and they are it's Scamazon. I know. I'm saying that.
yeah.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. I get it. I totally get it.
So
Yeah. So you're doing it's mostly direct ordering
it's
through.
direct ordering.
Okay. Awesome. So does that mean that there's an opportunity for signed copies?
All of the pre-orders will be signed.
I
So
thought I saw that. Okay, and you
yeah,
guys have a goal, right? You're
we
attempting to
do.
get to 200
200
signed. So, all right,
200
listeners,
signed.
moths to the flame, we're calling upon you. Help Kat get to their goal of 200 pre-ordered copies so that indie can continue to rise and put a
Crush
big
Amazon.
old middle finger out to traditional publishing. Ha ha ha.
We have like different tier goals. There was a lot of deleted content from this. We have like movie posters. We have extra movie reviews. All for
Awesome.
fictional movies that are in universe.
Yeah,
We've
yeah, yeah.
got extra comic pages and just like all kinds of stuff if we hit the 200 goal. So
That
yeah.
is right. I think I saw that there's a separate Twitter account that's in universe
Yeah.
from that book called Gut Reactions. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, so make sure everyone go follow Kat, go follow Gut Reactions, and get all the content. Order the book. All right, that's what we're here for. Okay, now's the moment of truth. Are you ready for
Okay.
our rapid fire questions?
I am as ready as I'm going to be.
Oh man, I'm so excited. Okay, so what was the first horror movie that you ever watched that you can remember?
Cube.
Okay,
1997.
How did it make you feel?
Scared but good.
Okay, good. It launched you into horror. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
I do too. Yes.
They're real.
Do you have any irrational fears?
Yes. I have gamophobia.
Okay, hold on. I don't know what gamophobia is. We're gonna have to take a break. What is gamophobia?
It is the fear of marriage.
Oh shit! Yeah, fuck that formal shit, right?
Yeah,
just kidding,
weddings
honey. I love you. No, well, you know what? The wedding process is its own horror story in itself. My God, yes. But
I'm a maid of honor this year, and everyone like keeps checking on me, and it's like check on the bride. Don't talk to me about it. Like,
wait, is it the process of marriage, or is it the what comes after, or is it like the ceremony?
It's all like wrapped up together.
Oh my gosh,
I think I'm doing really well. I've made big strides.
Yeah, you're being in the wedding. That is
a couple of years ago. If someone had asked me to be like a bridesmaid, I would have been like, "Fuck off."
No
like,
way.
Get out of here.
Can't be doing that. Can't be doing that.
No.
Like I'll zoom you. It's fine. Just put me as one of those honorables. Like put a photo of me in the room or something. Oh my God, that is so interesting. Okay, so what is the funniest horror movie that you've ever seen?
Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, definitely hilarious. Good answer. I like that. What is your favorite haunted experience that you've ever done?
Haunted experience. I once got kicked out of a haunted corn maze.
Kicked out. Okay, now we have to hear about this. Why were you kicked out?
It's the only haunted experience I ever did, and it's because we learned that my fight or flight response is very heavily weighted to fight. So if someone jumps out at me with a fake weapon, I will kick them.
Good to know. So everyone know, do not go to the haunted house with Kat.
Go to the haunted house with Kat. If you ever have like a real life survival situation, I can kick someone for you, but you will be escorted out of the event. If it's like
good.
A haunted house.
Okay, so apocalypse comes. You're the one.
I'll be there.
but virtual horror games, haunted experiences, no go on that. No. Okay, I'm the weirdo that's like laughing at it. I don't know if it's a trauma response or like, but the last haunted house I went to at Halloween, I was like, you got me, and I'm like laughing the whole time. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not a total psychopath, maybe.
That's who you want to go to a haunted house with.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I'm not going to be the one that goes walking in first, though, because I have to at least have a little bit of a warning. So, anyway. Okay, what's the best Halloween costume that you've ever worn?
Xena Warrior Princess.
Oh, yes. I bet you made the perfect Xena. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's amazing. Yes, good.
Although my Gabrielle was taller than me, which was awkward, but
I mean, whatever.
yeah,
I
it's
like
fine.
it. Bend it out, it's fine. Good, good. Okay, so this is a tough one. Who is your favorite horror author?
Oh, that is a tough one.
Put you on the spot.
I'm going to say Joe Hill, but it's
Okay.
close.
Okay. Okay. Close with.
Close with. I really like indie horror. So it's easy to choose like my one non-indie horror. But like Samantha Kolsnick, Gwendolyn Keast,
Yes. Yes.
Eric LaRocca would probably be up there. Christy
Yes.
Aldridge is up there. Like there's so many good indie
So
horrors.
many. I feel like
I got
horror is
lost.
having such a revolution right now. Like, oh, we're in a horror renaissance. It's so nice. And
I
indie
love it.
horror specifically, which I think is great. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, is your what's your, out of all of those favorite authors, what's your favorite horror book? You could say of all time or of the last year. Your
Um.
choice.
Well, of the last year, it definitely. I've already talked about it, but the Breaking of Mona Hill from the last year is
Yes.
definitely like the last big one. I think probably of all time, and it's so funny because I'm not even sure it's a horror novel, but like I think of it more as dark fantasy. But people tell me that Horns is a horror novel, and
Okay.
that one had a huge impact on me. So
Okay, good. So something to check out for sure.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. And well, we so appreciate you coming on the pod
Yeah.
today. And one more time for our listeners, they can find you on Twitter at
Cat_Voleur.
and then on Instagram, and they can go directly
Directly to the
to
website.
pre-order your awesome book that we're all going to have to go check out now, the Revenge Arc, and listen to your podcast and basically just keep up with all the shit you're doing in the horror community because
I
fuck,
do.
girl, like, you do all the things, and I love it. I think that's awesome. So I so appreciate you coming on the pod today. You'll have to come back with us, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, awesome. Thank you.